some regard the heart of Paris in Place Charles de Gaulle. We have now entered Place Charles de Gaulle, and this is one of the major meeting points of 12 of the most central avenues in all of Paris. It was named after President Charles de Gaulle, who is famously known for having survived. He's a Guinness World Record holder for having survived more assassination attempts than any other man on planet Earth. 32 times he was tried to be assassinated, and he managed to get through each one of them. Here in Place Charles de Gaulle, on this roundabout, as you've seen Christian drive through as well, it is absolutely mad. Call it as many lanes as you can guess at a certain time, because I don't think anyone is quite sure. But here on Place Charles de Gaulle, there is meant to be absolutely no insurance. Any car that is in here is meant to not be insured. However, in recent times, there is talks of it being changed to no matter what happens, it is absolutely equal insurance, and each person that is in here, like the insurance company, has to pay equal amount of money. It is obviously known as one of the most famous roundabouts in the world. However, the main centrepiece beside it, to your left, is the Arc de Triomphe. The Arc de Triomphe is one of the more famous arcs in the world, standing at 50 metres high and over 40 metres wide. It is so wide that in 1919 Charles Godfrey flew a biplane straight through the middle of the Arc de Triomphe. Below it, since 1920, has been the eternal flame, and that stays eternally lit. Apart from once in 1998, when a Mexican fan was arrested after a World Cup game for peeing on the flag. When we have now, the plane rather, we have now entered one of the famous streets in the world, the Champs-Élysées. To your left, you will see a McDonald's, and that doesn't seem very interesting at all. However, it is one of the only McDonald's, or in fact the only McDonald's in the world, that outside of the restaurant it doesn't have the famous golden arches. You might be able to see them on the facade of the building, however the one sticking out is white. This is because here on the Champs-Élysées they wanted to protect the avenue for the rich and famous five that it already has. You'll see many popular and upmarket stores. Coming up to your right is the Louis Vuitton store. The Louis Vuitton store is one of the more expensive shops in the world to kind of rent out. It is rumoured that they pay 1.65 million euros a month for the rent of the Louis Vuitton store. And I'm not sure about you, but that's like a hell of a lot of handbags. Louis Vuitton has a pretty interesting story about when it was originally opened. Now, to obviously pay for this huge amount of rent, it would need some idea to stay open all the time. And for a long time, no shops were allowed to be open on Sunday in Paris. However, the people at Louis Vuitton, they had a little bit of an idea. And what they said is they said that we're going to build a museum on the top floor. And to get to that top floor, you just so happen to have to walk through every department. So they opened a museum on the top floor, which was allowed to be open on the Sunday, and therefore they were allowed to sell their handbags on a Sunday. The average rent on this street is approximately 1,100 euros for every square metre. Said on the right-hand side of the street is more expensive than the left-hand side. To your right now, you will see La Durée. This place with a long arrow has the best rooms in all of Paris, in my humble opinion, and reasonably priced recent times, in actually the start of 2014, you'll see that there's bins all along the Champs-Elysees, but that wasn't the case all the time. All the way back in 2001, there was a terrorist attack on this street where terrorists hid bombs in the bins, and it ended up killing a few people along the street. The whole plan was to destroy the Arc de Triomphe, but that didn't end up going to plan, and bins were taken away, so no one could do the same thing. Only in recent times have these bins come back. You can see that they are clearly, you can see the bins from, they're just plastic bags, you can clearly see in them. The Champs-Elysees itself runs for approximately 1.9 kilometres, and it is famous as well for being where the end of the Tour de France, the final stage of the Tour de France, runs straight alongside here, up here. In July of each year, we see the final stages here, and the winner will have champagne in one hand and be cheersing with the face the other. To the right, you will see the Abercrombie and Fitch store, and to the left, you will also see the world's largest Adidas store. But getting back to the Abercrombie and Fitch store, it is very popular, as in there they've gone for the gimmick of shirtless men serving. They're not too bad. We are now crossing over halfway point of the Champs-Elysees, and this is known as Rond-Point. Rond-Point is the changeover point between the more commercial area and the garden area, or the more green area. Once upon a time, going back many years, the Champs-Elysees itself wasn't actually in the centre of Paris. It was actually outside of Paris. However, as the city grew out more and more, it is now very much the centre of Paris. Also, along the Champs-Elysees, we have a nightclub that is owned and run, when he's back, by David Guetta, the famous DJ, and also has the Lido, which is always worth a little bit of a look. This would be the main area where, as I said, the Tour de France would come up and the winners. And during July, the streets would be packed down here, and the last time we get to see them every year. To your right, you will see a man walking, a statue of a man walking, and this is the statue of Charles de Gaulle. He was elected in 2000, 30 years after his death, and this, they uplifted the ban on Charles de Gaulle, only any monuments to him. At the bottom of the statue, it says the famous quote that he said: "Paris betrayed, Paris wrecked, Paris beaten, but Paris freed." And this is the street that Charles de Gaulle walked down when Paris was freed in 1944. To your right, you also see a sandstony building through the trees, and this is the Petit Palais. The Petit Palais is the little sister to the Grand Palais, which we will see later on. And today, it was originally built in 1900 for the World Trade Fair. It's renowned for its amazing design and has been copied by a few people, the Canadians and the Chileans, who have different museums now that are designed as that. And it's pretty interesting to go and have a look around. You may go and see through your left, through the trees, that of what we know as the Palais Elysee. And the Palais Elysee is the official residence of the president here in France. So right now, that house belongs to Francois Hollande. However, it has had a little bit of checkered past. I've mentioned before how previous French leaders didn't mind a little promiscuity, I suppose, so to speak. And this goes back to the time, again, of the Louis, when Louis XV bought the Palais Elysee for one of his mistresses. But it was was soon found out by everyone, and some of the things that were written above the gate when they first went there weren't exactly PG, and let everyone around Louis know that they knew that he had mistresses, they knew she was there, and they didn't think too much of her. But throughout time it has changed a lot. Today it is a presidential palace. Over €1 million is spent on drinks every year there. We are now entering Place de la Concorde. Place de la Concorde is, again, one of the more interesting and famous parts of Paris. You'll see on different sides horses out to the left of the coach right now, and also out to the right you'll see horses rearing in the air. And this is said to replicate the horses that once trotted around here. Because here in Place de la Concorde was a place where the guillotine used to stand. The guillotine is, of course, the famous French invention that cut straight through the necks of people and executed all that was in its wake. So these horses are said to be there because they didn't want to put their feet down with all the bloodshed that happened. To the left, you'll see a large, tall, pointy thing, and this is the obelisk of Luxor. The obelisk of Luxor is about 3,300 years old, and an exact replica stands of it in Luxor in Egypt. It was a gift from the Egyptians, and it still stands here today. The oldest thing that we have in Paris. It has not been without its controversy though. For those that know the French Spider-Man, he has twice scaled the obelisk of Luxor, and back in 1993 on World AIDS Day, it was in fact covered by a big pink condom. The reason they did this was to promote sexual awareness or health awareness for AIDS in the community, and it was quickly taken off, but not before plenty of people got photos. Out to the front of the coach and to the left, you will see one building that is identical to the building that is out to the coach on the right, and on the left is the Hotel Crillon. The Hotel Crillon is the probably most exclusive hotel in all of Paris. At the moment it is under construction and won't be back open until 2016, but it's a place where the rich and famous used to come. In fact, the Tour de France winner used to get 3 free nights here. And when Alberto Contador was discovered as a drug treat, it is reasoned or it is said that the Hotel Crillon sent him a bill. If it happened to Alberto, I would have to land and down because it's not cheap there. To the left, you will see a large warning that says maximum, and after it that says minimums. This is one of the more exclusive restaurants that is connected to the Hotel Crillon. A main meal there goes for around about 200-300 euros. They have bulletproof glass and also glass that you can't see through out the front. So in case anyone was ever attacked or paparazzi were around, they could not be seen. Minimums is its little sister, and it's much cheaper, looking at about $130, $140 a main meal there. So obviously we can all afford that. And also, same kind of restaurant, same kind of theme, but with the exclusiveness. During its time, there's a secret to the underground passage, like I said, that leads straight from the hotel to Maxims, and the rich and famous regularly dine there. In front of the coach, again to the left, you'll see a large, looks like a cathedral kind of building. This is the Église de Madeleine. The Église de Madeleine is surrounded by 52 columns, Roman columns, and it is said that each one of these represents a week in the year. Just bear with me, guys, just give me a sip. Yes, each one of these represents a week of the year. It's where the highest class weddings in Paris happen, and it is said to cost thousands and thousands of dollars to hire out each weekend. However, there is one little fact about the Église de Madeleine, that you can actually subscribe to be able to go in there at any stage for €3 a week. And if you subscribe for this €3 a week, then at any stage, as long as you book a week in advance, you can go in there and have the cheapest meal in all of Paris. A 3-course meal costing about $7.50. However, only very few people each year are allowed to subscribe up to the Église de Madeleine. And it's also very, very difficult to get in contact with them to be able to do it. Now, I mentioned before that France, or Paris itself, had so much history and culture behind it, but it also has a very, very impressive sporting history. The French Open dates back into the 1890s, and officially 1891. Officially 1891, when it first came about. At this stage, it was only open to the French Tennis Association members. However, as it progressed, it started to get a little bit different and change up. So by 1897, they had a women's competition, and by 1904, they had a doubles competition. In the 1920s was the first time that they let non-French tennis members in, when they challenged the US team to what we now know as the Davis Cup. And this has continued from that date. However, they realised that the complex for the French Open that they were having it at wasn't... Oh, well, that was a crash. Oh, no, he just got off his bike. So that's what we see a little bit of. A person crashing out to the front right and abusing someone that probably wasn't in the wrong at all. It was probably his fault. Anyway, they decided to move the new... Oh, here he goes.
Oh, he's going. He's going. Oh, is he okay?
I'm not really sure what he's doing here, but this is much more interesting than what I'm talking about. So let's watch old mate. That's a bit disappointing. I want to see what else is going to happen there. 1927, anyway, Roland Garros, that we now know it, or the tennis centre Roland Garros opens. I'll talk a little bit about who Roland Garros was a little bit later on. But the main court was named later on, in about the 70s and 80s, after Philippe Cartier. It was actually named in 1988, and Philippe Cartier was known as the man who was famous for bringing tennis back into the Olympics. It was the first year that tennis was allowed back in 1988, and he was the main man, the instrumental man behind it, to be honest. It's one of those Grand Slams that the big names, or a lot of the big names, didn't manage to win. Guys like John McEnroe and Boris Becker, Pete Sampras as well. They never managed to win the French Open. It was the elusive title. However, the man who's had his hands on it recently is Rafael Nadal. 8 out of the last 9 titles. Now, out to your left, you will see a stunning building with red awnings and also heads in gold at the front. And this is the Palais Garnier, or the Opera Garnier, or the Opera. Any of those names really suit. This is the main opera house here in Paris. And as the main opera house, it holds... opera has always been a very big thing all throughout France, but it holds a very, very special place in French hearts. It's also the setting for those that know the Phantom of the Opera. Now, for those that don't know the story of the Phantom of the Opera, it was made particularly famous when it was made into a musical, an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, and it's one of the longest running musicals in all of London. So how it works is that there is said to be a person that lives underneath the opera house in the lakes below that plays music, and he sort of haunts the opera house, so to speak. And there is lakes, underground lakes, that do run underneath the Palais Garnier. However, if we look underneath, it's a complete contrast to what we look at when we go to the roof, because in the roof there is a number of bees up there, and these bees make what is known as the best honey in all of Paris. There is a gentleman who decided one day to sort of cultivate a group of bees there, and the reports that he got back from all of them was that the honey was sensational. So he now sells that honey inside the foyer, and he's tried doing it on roofs of other places, but it has just not been anywhere near as good. However, like I said, it is being as good as it is quite expensive, and it generally goes for about 100 grams. It's about €6 or something like that. But if you are a big honey fan and want to try the honey that comes from the roof of the Palais Garnier, then please be my guest and go on in there tomorrow and have a look around. Inside, it is stunningly beautiful, and it's also an easy place to navigate yourself from.
잘 사놓고만 뭘 찍어. 우리 사람이 보이고 사는
As we now go away from the Palais Garnier, I mentioned the name Roland Garros. So Roland Garros is the name of the centre of the French play. However, what many people don't know is who Roland Garros was. Roland Garros was a very, very famous French aviator, and he first was known to the French in 1909 when he started flying. In 1911, he became the first man to cross the Mediterranean from to Tunisia in a plane, and soon after that, his skills and prowess were recognised by the French military. He went into the French Air Force, so to speak. Not only was he such a good flyer, but he also had amazing hand-eye coordination and became the first man to shoot down a German aircraft during World War I with bullets in between the propellers. It had never been done before. And from there, he earned the nickname, as many fighter pilots did in the stage, Ace. And that is where the phrase in tennis, Ace, comes from. A thing that can't be hit. And that's what Roland Garros was recognized as. In 1914 rather, he had an emergency landing over German borders, and he was captured and taken to a POW camp, a prisoner of war camp, where he was held, but eventually escaped in about 1916. He got back over the border into France and actually joined the Air Force again. And things were going well for Roland Garros until, unfortunately, only a week out from the end of World War I, he was shot down and he was killed. Roland Garros himself was a very keen tennis fan, a part of the main French tennis club at the stage, and that is why he is recognised with Roland Garros and the centre that we now see just on the outskirts of Paris, and we hear about every year in July. Coming up on the left-hand side, you will see a building through the trees, again of sandstone colours with small columns down the bottom, and this is the comedy club here in France. Many both French and international acts come from all around the world to go here to the comedy club, and many people, you have to be invited by special invitation to here. The first time that we saw an English act in here was in the mid-90s, and it was a little bit of a shock, so to speak, to the people. The French don't like change in particular. The only thing they like changing is in their presidents and in their prime ministers, because they seem to change quite regularly, but I think that's because of more of the affairs than anything else. But yeah, they didn't like the particular change. However, they've grown to like it, and you get both French, English. They've even had Italian acts in there at some stage now in the comedy club. I'm just going to take a rest for a minute. I'm going to talk about. Oh no, we're going through the lines. I'll keep going. Why not? So the street that we're about to come up to, is Rue de Rivoli, and this is one of the more famous shopping streets here in France, especially down to the left-hand side, the Rue de Rivoli. So it's got all your big retailers, and if you're not looking for expensive shopping, then you go down Rue de Rivoli. If you go down to the right-hand side, you can find my favourite hot chocolate in the whole entire world, in Angelina's. It is amazing. It's like heaven in your mouth. And although hot chocolates there cost $7.80, they're worth it. Now, we'll probably be coming round to the right-hand side here, I would imagine. Oh, hang on, you're not going through here. Hang on. Whoa. Now this guy. The normal drivers do not do that. Now we get to see this. Thank you very much, Christian. Before I talk about the Louvre, I just want you guys to take note of the statue on the right-hand side. You will see like a mini Arc de Triomphe, the Arc de Triomphe de Carousel, but there is a statue just in front of it. Tomorrow at 5:30, we will be meeting at that statue. So everyone out to the right, if you look out to the right of the coach, you'll see the mini Arc de Triomphe, and just in front of it there is a statue. That statue is where we'll be meeting tomorrow at 5:30. Does that make sense to everyone? Perfect. And underneath there is one of the secret entries to the Louvre. So there are some stairs around the back of that. If you guys go through that, walk underneath, you will not have to line up the top, and you'll get in much quicker. So that's one of the entries there. But let me talk more about the Louvre. The Louvre entry there, that pyramid, there's plenty of myths about it. It was invented by I.M. Pei back in 1989, and it was originally considered a little bit of an eyesore. However, today it's been embraced by the French people and loved by the French people. It is said that there is, in Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code, it was said that there were 666 triangles in that, which seems very unlucky. That's the devil's number. However, that's not true, Dan Brown. There's 673, so you're full of crap. However, the other little house, that is the Arc de Triomphe de Carousel. The Arc de Triomphe de Carousel exactly lines up with the Arc de Triomphe. So if you look straight through the middle of that, you'll be able to see the Arc de Triomphe, and you'll be able to see the access of symmetry that is created all throughout Paris. Like I said, it's a little sister to the Arc de Triomphe. And there's a Riga on the top. And it was said that was brought back by Napoleon from Venice as a memento, and then it was replaced. Now, that's not the case. It's a little bit of a and yes. So all of this building here on the left-hand side is the Louvre. And tomorrow I'll talk more about the Louvre and actually what's in there and all the rest when we do the end of the city tour. But I know a couple of people were asking about before the Lovelock Bridge. And to the right, you will see the Lovelock Bridge. This is the bridge that many lovers come to each year, and they put locks on there. And when it's said, you can buy a lock, you write the it of the two people that are in love, you lock it, and then you throw the key in the river to show your eternal love. However, with the rising divorce rates here in France, coming and chopping off their locks on the Lovelock Bridge, so it sort of defeats the purpose. The other thing, this will not be the last time that you see a bridge with lots of locks on it. Every single place we seem to go has a bridge with locks on it. If it's in Europe and it's a bridge, you will see a lock on it. They love it. They don't care why, they'll put a lock on it, I tell you. But this is the most famous. At the moment you'll see that it's boarded up. They don't actually like it. It's actually legal to do it. It actually gets so heavy that you can't, like, the weight of it. Well, actually last year it managed to collapse on one side, the weight of it. So they had to completely repair it again, and yeah. Once again it's back to being incredibly full. As we come up here on your right hand side, you will see one of the two islands in the centre of Paris, and this is Ile de la Cite, or Ile de la Cite. This is where the Parisi tribe, the first people that came to Paris, originally settled, and they came here to Paris, and they were the first inhabitants really of Paris. It's also where St. Genevieve saved the city from Attila the Hun as he was coming down by holding a prayer meeting. And her prayer meeting, whether you believe it or not, I'll talk more about St. Genevieve tomorrow, but her prayer meeting, she brought all the people of Paris together that prayed, managed to make Attila turn away. Now the fact that Attila had major problems back home in the Mongol areas, I assume had absolutely nothing to do with it. But either way, it is St. Genevieve is now known as the patron saint of Paris. To your right, you will see a large sandstone building with spires coming out of it and a black roof, and this is the conciergerie. The conciergerie, as I previously mentioned, was a good old-fashioned jail, and in those little turrets and towers that we can see are where people were tortured once upon a time. Famous inhabitants of the conciergerie were, what's her name? Marie Antoinette. Excuse me, guys. Just had a blank there for a second. Marie Antoinette, who was the famous wife of Louis XVI, who was executed by the guillotine. Speaking of the guillotine, they have 2,700 names of people executed by the guillotine on the walls of the conciergerie. And it's definitely worth a look and a check out if you guys get the time. Behind it, you will see a large spire pointing into the air, and this is Saint-Chapelle. Saint-Chapelle was the one I was talking to you about before, guys, with the stained glass windows, and itself is magnificent inside. Once upon a time, it was the place where the crown jewels were held, and it was the reason why it was originally built. So Saint-Chapelle was meant to hold the crown jewels of France, and for a long time they were held there until they have been moved on. Now, going in, what we will do here from now, guys, is I'll point out one or two last little sites. Coming up on the right hand side, we'll see the second island in the middle of Paris, and on the left we will see Hotel de Ville, which is where French Parliament, well, not the French Parliament, but where the cabinet sort of sits at times. But from there we will be heading on out to the campsite, which means tomorrow morning we will get to see things